having strong opposition to totalitarian regimes, whether they might be from the Nazis or the communists, I decided that I'll take part in the Vietnam War. Well, I was born in Denmark, in a small village on the Jutland Peninsula during the Second World War, and I lived there for the best part of my childhood. In Denmark I joined the Danish Army and served in a light infantry regiment for a couple of years. So I contacted the US military, both the Army and the Marine Corps, and they would have me, but the immigration wouldn't let me in. So in 1968 I left Europe on a ship bound for Australia. On the ship I met my wife.
I was in a cabin with two Dutch girls, and we all went down to breakfast the next morning, and it was two spaces at one table. They want to sit together, and there was only one other space left in the dining room with a table full of young men. And I sat down and said good morning, and Carlo was the only one who could speak English, so he said hello. So we got to know one another from that, and I got off in New Zealand and he went on to Australia.
When I first landed in Australia was in August '68. The ship arrived in Melbourne. Obviously I'd never been to Melbourne before, so I just walked in any direction and I ended up in front of the Army recruiting office. I went in and said that I'd like to talk to somebody about joining the Army, and the warrant officer who interviewed me, he said, "How long have you been in Australia?" And I said, "About 2.5 hours."
I think it was June that we heard that Carlo was going to Vietnam, so we made preparations to come back to New Zealand, and I came by ship and brought the dog with me.
In Vietnam were 3 specific type of soldiering peculiar to that war. One was the military advisors, the other special forces, and the third was what was referred to in the Australian Army as subterranean warfare specialists. The people who were accepted for the special warfare school obviously had to have a number of specific attributes, and keeping in mind that the tunnel system were made by small Vietnamese people, the soldiers who then went down in the tunnels obviously had to fit. The last major event I had in Vietnam was an operation called Operation Overlord, which was launched on the 6th of June 1971. We drove out the North Vietnamese from the base camp, where they had about 60 odd bunkers. The Australians, I think, lost all up in that operation, about 10 soldiers. The New Zealanders had 2 wounded from memory. We had a helicopter shot down, and we had a tank out of action, and the North Vietnamese, when they retreated, ran straight into the American blocking force and suffered heavy casualties because of that. Well, obviously my wife was supportive, and I'm quite sure she did not cherish the year I was away, nor necessarily the years I spent in the Australian Army, because the first 3 anniversaries we had I was away with the Army. The time I had in Vietnam obviously was a planned time. I do not remember each and every day of my time in Vietnam, but I can add that each and every day I wrote my wife a letter.
Yes, the letters were very important because it was so far away. I couldn't lift up the phone and ring him at any time or talk to him, and the only news I would get was by letter.
They didn't arrive at her address in New Zealand each and every day, but they arrived in bundles of 6 or 20 at a time.
I was cleaning out my drawer one day and I couldn't get anything in the drawer, this big stack of letters, so I thought, well, I don't need these now.
She burnt them all.
No, that's me being extra tidy.